Welcome to the Protecting Your Nest podcast. For many years as a clinician, my definition of being a good doctor was defined by achieving the quality measures we call HEDIS. Now, HEDIS stands for Healthcare Effectiveness Data and Information Measures. HEDIS is a way to make sure I am doing a good job as a clinician compared to my colleagues. For example, if I have a diabetic patient on cholesterol medicines, they should be on cholesterol medicines. Or if I have a COPD, which is chronic emphysema or bronchitis, I have to make sure they're on optimal therapy. If I can answer yes to those questions, I'm considered a good doctor. I have since learned that if I hope to help patients achieve their targets, I must have a way to understand why some people struggle. Answering this question is actually how I've learned to be a more effective clinician. What I've also learned is that how the world perceives my patients may impact how much they may struggle. Today, I want you to see the world through the lens of a particular segment of my patient population, through the lens of a Black man who may actually struggle for reasons you may not have considered. A research study was done where a simple question was asked: when Americans look at young Black men, what words or phrases come to mind? Over 90% of the responses were negative, and they included words and phrases like dangerous, criminal, thug, aggressive, angry, rapper, and athlete. And I'll touch on that study a little bit during our discussion. But my goal today in this episode is not to make anyone listening feel guilty or uncomfortable, but instead to use this as an educational tool to be more empathetic, especially my medical colleagues who, like I, am charged with asking and taking care of patients of color and in our entire community. So the next time they interact with a Black or African American male, they better understand why they may struggle in life, struggle to achieve their health-related goals. Today's episode is also relevant because it focuses on how we think, which is the T in the NEST acronym, as well as our life experiences, which is the E in the ROPE acronym. So my hope is that perceptions will change. My hope is that we are a little closer to a world with more empathy than the current world we exist in. Today's guest is Al. I met Al because we share the same barber. My barber's name is Jamie, and his barbershop, I'll do a shout out to him right now. It's called the Magnificent Barbershop in Oak Park, Illinois. It's a place where I, Al, and others laugh, we argue about sports, and we just have a great conversation with men who look and feel just like us. Amen to that. And when we had a conversation, me and Al, I knew his perspective would be one that I felt you would enjoy hearing from as well. Al's an entrepreneur whose company manages bank foreclosures. He enjoys reading books about self-development. I too do the same. And he has a wife he's been with for 23 years, and he's been married for about 12 years. And he is also a parent of two beautiful kids. They're a little older now. His girl is 20 and his son is 15. And with that, Al, with my pleasure, I welcome you to the Protecting Your Nest podcast, my brother.
Hey, thanks, Tony. Hey, I'm happy to be here, man. Thanks, for bringing me in, man. It's a good thing, for the world to hear my voice, man. And me be able to put my opinions, in front of the camera. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me, brother.
Yeah, man. When I saw you, met you, if for those watching or listening, this is the kind of buddy I had growing up in the neighborhood. They were like Al, So we resonated with each other, and I was really impressed. I saw your son, man. He looked like a little professor. I was looking at you. You had a little edge to you, but then I looked at your son. I'm like, look at this son. So that really, as a guy that's raising two Black men who are older than your kids, that resonated with me, and I was so proud to see you and how you interacted with him. And so it was just a good thing to see. And that's why, again, let's have this conversation because, again, perception becomes reality. And we'll touch on that study I mentioned in a moment. But let's talk a little bit about who you are. So let's just give us a brief, a couple of lines about who you are, maybe a little bit about your entrepreneur work. Let's share that with the audience right now.
So how y'all doing, y'all? So my name is Elbert Mahone. My friends call me Al, as you hear Dr. Tony calling me Al. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur maybe for about 15 years straight. I recently just opened up a business managing foreclosed properties for banks. Um, as he said, I got two kids and a wife. Just a loyal family guy. Trying to make it in this world. Yeah.
I love it, man. And I mentioned before we got started that in my previous life, and my listeners may not know this, when I was kind of towards the end of working for a different organization called Circle Family Care on the West Side, federally funded, underserved clinic in the hood, I got interested because I, like you, like to learn and develop, right? So I started
Yeah.
reading. I remember Carlton Sheets or something. It was a real estate guy. He used to talk about buy property, with no money down,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I got into that, I think we all remember that guy. But what was cool about it is that it kind of gave me something else to do, to think more like an entrepreneur. Most of us get, go to school, get jobs, and we become, kind of, under the tutelage of other people. But it's nice to do your own thing. But yeah, man, I help. What helped me is that a lot of people that I knew wanted to invest, but they didn't have anybody they trusted, right? So I would actually help, like, literally colleagues, some patients. They say, I want to buy investment property, and I literally got to the point where they trusted me so much. I've actually put contracts on property sight unseen by the client, because they said, well, I trust you if the numbers make sense. And I did that for maybe about 10 years, and I enjoyed it. But then my wife said, you need to be a real doctor. You go back, be a doctor. So
Yeah.
the irony of our conversation is that in a year or two, we'll be in a good position to start investing more. So I'll probably be calling you on your cell phone. So we'll talk about that when we get to it, man.
Okay,
So
man.
so let's move on to the relationship we have with Jamie. I hope Jamie gets a chance to hear this episode, our barber. And
Yeah.
man, it's almost like they're a therapist, man. You talk to them, they share stuff, they give advice. I've gotten some of the best advice from my barber. I mean, he just,
Yeah.
ain't that crazy? So, and
Yeah.
I've learned a lot. So talk a little bit about, a lot of people in other communities may not fully understand what it's like to have the barbershop experience in the Black community. So tell me a little bit about what that relationship with Jamie means, what the relationship with going to the barbershop means for you.
Well, you know what? When I first met Jamie, it was just a walk in, no appointment, and I asked him. I said, "Hey, do you got room for me and my boy?" He said, "Yeah." So the first day I sat down in the chair, man, I was comfortable. He cut my hair and everything. I went home, looked at myself in the mirror, in the back of my head mainly. I said, "Man, this guy blended my face so good." And man, he cut me up so good, man. I said, "You know what? We going back, son." He like, "Yeah, daddy, we going back." So the second visit I went back, man, and I just started getting so comfortable. I was able to close my eyes, man, and kind of relax and
Yeah,
almost go to sleep. So I was comfortable where I was with him, and talking to him, man, like I said, being comfortable in the chair
yeah,
and talking to him, that goes hand in hand with, just talking about regular life experiences, you know what I'm
right.
saying? And he got that wisdom on him, you know what I'm saying?
He's
So
a therapist, man. He's a
yeah, yeah,
therapist.
he's real good at what he does, man. As far as cutting
Yeah,
hair and talking to people, it just makes you feel comfortable, man. When you talk to him, you know that you when you give some information out, he's gonna calculate and give you back, the answer with it, and what way to deal with things. You know what I'm saying? It's good, being comfortable around somebody like that, man.
yeah. He what's funny about that, and before I started seeing Jamie, there was a barber, Frank's barbershop down the street, on you know about that one. I went there first, which is a little closer to where I live. And Frank was a father figure for me, man. Like, literally, I mean, I never had dad at home, and eventually I got a stepdad. Shout out to, we call him Papa Ed. So he came into my life, when I was a teenager, and thank God he did. But I'm gonna tell you something, man. My barber was like a father figure, and although we're kind of closer to Jamie's age, I'm actually around this age. He may be a year or two older than me. I'm assuming he's, you're younger than me. I'm actually 54, so you
Okay,
look like you're
yeah,
much
yeah,
younger. But at the end of the day, those relationships are valuable. But it's not just for us. Like literally, if your child was there, you could leave your child there, and if your child was younger, yours is a little bit older now. He would keep them in order. Like he'd say, "Hey, get your feet down. Hey, now you can quiet down." He was providing discipline and structure. And then even if men came in there talking crazy and they were saying things they shouldn't be saying as a married man, he would kind of say, "Nah, man, you may want to look at that different." So he really
Yeah,
provides therapy for men and kids in the community, and I really appreciate him. So again, I hope he gets a chance to hear our appreciation of him.
me too, man.
Yeah, he's the man. So I'm gonna make sure I send this episode straight to him as soon as we release it. So
Yeah,
let's touch on I just want to go back a little bit to the comments I shared when we started. I shared, how Americans look at black men. And even though they said young black men, I think it applies to all black men. And over 90% of their perceptions were negative. And so when you think about that, it's really heart wrenching. And I want people listening to this episode, let's just say you're listening or watching and you're not a black man, right? I want you to think about how you would feel if the world perceived you that way. Each and every day you have to overcome these stereotypes. I literally, if I was wearing my hoodie, would I be more scary than just being a black man? I mean, literally just by being a black man in America, you're scary to the world. And then you hear about these stories about, recently we had a shooting. I mean, 50 something shots hit this man, maybe 20 were fired and he's running away is what I understand. I didn't really watch the reports, but just hearing Jamie talk about it when I saw him recently, really, are we so dangerous that when we're running away
I think
unarmed
people are
that we're
scared,
that?
man.
Yeah, see what I'm saying? So I
People
want
scared.
people are afraid, and I want people to understand as they hear us talk. Would your life be more challenging if you were living that stereotype, right? Would you be angry if you were living that stereotype? Would you struggle to achieve your health related goals if you were living that stereotype? How much energy would you have to expend just to have a normal interaction with somebody who's not like you so that they don't feel nervous around you? So when you think about that, Al, all this negativity, when you heard me say those things about the words that people think about, what did you feel in your heart when you heard those words?
Oh man, you know what? First of all, before I even say it, it's just thinking about all that, man. It's you have to prepare yourself. You have to double prepare yourself because you already realize that it's going to be like double hard on you. You know what I mean? It's not easy on the black man in America these days, man, because we know how people view us. You know how per se people look at us. You know what I mean? Like you said, if you put the hoodie on, would you look any different? And they don't realize that. You the same person with the hoodie off or on. You know what I mean? Just get to know us a little bit better.
That's right.
Instead of just I don't know. I don't want to say point the finger, but let's just put it like this: we're not dangerous people. We're
Mm,
people. We go through things just like everybody else. Some days we may not be feeling good just like everybody else. You
that's
know what
right.
I'm saying? And to be perceived as dangerous or you some type of wild animal or something, it's a lot. It makes it where the black man is hard. It's hard for the black person to express himself without it being um, parallel with the word anger. You know what I mean?
That's
So
right.
it's,
Yeah,
it's hard.
it's
It's
hard.
hard.
And
Real hard, man.
if I were to speak to my clinicians for a moment, sometimes people you'll come to the clinic, right? You'll have your, by the way, shout out to the socks, the white socks. You got your socks hat on. My uncle was my father before my stepdad, and he would take me because it was like the socks. It wasn't the Cubs. No, shout out to the
Uh-huh.
Cubs, but it was always.
Uh-huh.
Plus, I
Uh-huh.
like their hats better. I like their hats better.
Yeah, I do too, man. I love the
It's all
socks hats,
good.
man.
Yeah, I love the socks hats, man. So, but man, people would come. You come into a clinic, right? Maybe you got your socks hat on. Maybe you got a tattoo on your neck or something. But what they don't know is I'm an entrepreneur. What they don't know is I got 2 kids that's killing it. I got a wife I've been married for 12 years. We've been together for 23 years. They don't know that. All they see
No,
is
they don't know it.
Al, the thug, or and then what happens? That's why my clinicians must hear me. We cannot treat Al differently because he doesn't look like this other person that you feel more comfortable with. Now if Al does something to earn a little, where you have to treat them different, that's different, but you should treat every individual the same. And I really think that's so important, that we message that. And the only way you're gonna, and again, going back to the stats, right, about what people said, if you know that people perceives the world, and again, people think it's just somebody else. This was over 95% of the population saying these things. So guess what? If you're watching this or if you're hearing this, that's probably you. And we all have biases, and there's nothing wrong with bias. We were all raised differently. We had different life experiences. So it's nothing wrong with bias, but the awareness of the bias is the key. So I'm an obesity doc, right? So if I know there's bias towards people who are overweight, I need to have awareness, because guess what? I have a bias too. I'm still going to look at that person some kind of way, and I have to remind myself that person may have been 400 pounds and now 300 pounds. I should be,
Absolutely.
see what I'm saying? So it's a bias that we have to really guard ourselves against. One thing that I wanted to mention, my wife with her lovely self, or I got you beat, man. I've been married 29 years.
Oh wow.
I'm
I
an
thought I
old
had
school,
you
but
beat, man.
that's right, I got you, man. And what she said was, she reminded me, and I really appreciate this. She said that you remember when our kids were little, because I was talking about you last night, before we recorded, and I was like, we used to, she actually did this herself. If our kids went into the store, right, and our kids needed to purchase something, and nowadays you have to pay for bags these days, right? She said, always get a bag. She said, always make sure you got a receipt. Now, the question is, how many people have to tell their kids that? You know what I mean? Like, and so an African American family completely gets it. And we don't want our young black men in particular to get caught up in nonsense because somebody decides because they're scared because of what we just shared. They're so nervous. This person must be up to something. Now I'm just in here trying to buy me some, whatever. It's just crazy. So do you think you guys have done the same things over the years, you and your lovely wife, like had to kind of tell your kids how to act in society?
You know what? It's like you said, you got some years on me. So since then things have changed a little bit in society. So now what I'm doing is, well, before I start letting him go to the store by himself, I start going into the stores with him.
Mm,
Every time he said, "Hey dad, is it okay if I go to the store?" I don't care what I'm doing. I'll stop what I'm doing right then, take him, get him, put him in the car, and then we go to the store together. I get out the car and kind of train him, trying to, kind of chauffeur him around the store, let him see how he's supposed to be behaving, so people don't perceive him trying to figure out what he wants to buy out of the store with a criminal intent to steal something out of the store. So that's what I do, man. Look, it got stressful. It did, but I'd rather do that than the cops getting called on my son because he can't figure out what flavor Slurpee he wants or what chips he wants to buy. And now next thing you know, the police are up there
that's right.
questioning him about, something silly. You know what I mean? So um, after I did that process, you know what? I'm leaving the part out. When I was doing that, I would make sure that the clerk saw my face. He knew that that was my son.
Mm,
I would associate myself strongly with my son to almost all the clerks that I could, and I made it comfortable for him to come in and out of the store. I had to do that because of the biases and the things that's going on. I don't want my son falling in that little crack that I can't pull him out of because somebody perceives him as being a crook
that's
or
right.
doing something wrong because he's black. You know what I mean? He comes in with his hood on, over his head all the time. I guess that's a new thing the young guys are doing now. They just wear a hood for no reason. It can be burning up outside. Here they is with a hoodie on,
That's right.
with the hood on. You know what I mean? Minding their business. I don't know if that's their way of shutting out the world, but they do it. That's what
Hey,
they do.
hey, listen, we all had things we did when we were younger, so we can, we don't, I mean, we're older than them, and yet we're still trying to find ourselves our way in the world.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
they really trying. And one of the things, so that's part of the culture. I've even been in situations, man. I remember back in the day when Boys in the Hood was out, and I think it was Boys in the Hood, and
It's
uh,
boys
and
in the
they
hood.
and it was they had a cat in there. They were doing a pacifier thing, They were, you remember that they had pacifiers in their mouth. I was at one of
I
my,
remember.
you remember that? And,
I remember.
shout out to John Singleton. I hate that he left us too soon with his skills as a producer.
R.I.P.
But check this out, man. So I'm checking this out. Like I'm at the laundromat because we didn't, we lived in an apartment, and I'm with my mom at a laundromat. And at this point, I'm like tired of pants hanging out people's butts and pacifiers. But one thing I've learned to do is just go talk to your brothers, right? And you can't be afraid. The world is already afraid of us, so I definitely am not going to be afraid of my own people. I just refuse to do that. So I came up to this cat. I said, "Man, what's up with the pacifier? Why? What's up?" He said, "Man, first of all, it's popular and the girls like it." I'm like, "The girls like it when you got a pacifier in your mouth?" And that's an extreme example, right? But the key is we have to ask. There's a reason for everything in life, right? So if you can ask, that don't mean you're not going to discourage it, but you just want to have a conversation. Say, man, what's up with that? Why?
Yeah,
Why you do? And then if in my environment, pacifiers back in the day or pants hanging off your bottom today, if that's the thing, how can you look at a person in that community? That's the world they live in, and then kind of look at them negatively. You may want to give them some advice to move in a different direction, but don't look at them negatively. Understand that's the culture,
yeah,
and the rappers and the celebrities. That's what they do, and that's who they look up to. They're not looking up to the police officer or even a doctor. They're not even. They barely see a doctor. So I think it's important that we understand that because it really provides perspective, and I really appreciate that, man. It's like
yeah,
crazy. One
yeah,
thing that,
yeah.
but when I met you, man, again, when I met you, I think I saw your son first looking like a professor, right? And I'm looking, and then but I saw how you interact with Jamie, our barber. You had a little edge to you, and then we started talking. We talked about a lot of cool stuff. So I know you value fatherhood.
Absolutely.
For me, man, I didn't have my biological father, so I always wanted to be at least a parent who is present. Now, I don't blame my father completely. I'm gonna tell you why. Because of what I told you about those stats. So if you live in a world where the world is beating up on black men, and then you expect them to then function in a normal way
It's not
after
possible,
it
man.
ain't happening, man.
It's not. It's not possible.
So I don't know the full breadth of why I didn't have my father at home, but what I will say is that I don't blame him completely because I think that there are reasons that I may not understand as a child or a young man. So, but for you, man, I know fatherhood is critical for you, right? So talk a little bit
Absolutely.
about what does fatherhood mean? You got lucky. I got two boys. I love my boys, but I tried to get a girl. I couldn't get a girl. So
Man, I got lucky, man.
you
I
got
got
lucky,
lucky.
man. Born to be. So what does fatherhood mean to you, man?
You know what, man? Like you said, when you made the example about your pops, man. One time I got into a little trouble in high school, man, and my pops. First of all, my pops was a street guy. You know what I mean? He was a huge street guy. You know what I'm saying? And he had time for me, but his paces was real short. And I for a second I thought, man, my father, he don't really care. Then one day, man, something happened, and he came up to the school, man, and I'm like, it wasn't nothing to me then because I was young. But when I got older, it's the same situation happened with my son. And I'm thinking, man, I should make my presence felt at his school so nobody bother my son. I started thinking, man, my father loves me a lot. If he came to the school and risked his freedom up at the school, with all his buddies trying to, make a point that, hey, don't bother my son. You know what I mean? That clicked in my head, as far as it was real important to my father, to me being a good dad, to me showing me, hey, I don't want you to do this, I don't want you to do that. I couldn't see it then until I got into his spot, how very important it is, man, to be a good father and what examples to show your son and your daughter. You know what I'm saying? So it's real important to me to be there in my son and my daughter's life, to be able to guide them in the right direction, man. So they thinking clear, you know what I mean, with a clear
Right.
conscience, not thinking of always of messed up stereotypes of people, and keeping an open mind and know how to interact with people the right way and talk to
That's right.
people, and be kind in the right ways and also be firms in the right way. You know what I'm saying?
That's
So
right.
me being here, man, is real important to me, man. I mean, it's real important to me. It's not even a job. It's something I love to do because when I see my son or my daughter acting out some of the things I taught them, man, it makes me happy because I know, okay, when it's time for me to go, I know I can lay in that box and be comfortable and peaceful. I
Right.
don't have to be, not that you're gonna have a word when you're gone, but who wants to be thinking, hey, what's gonna happen to my family if something happens to me? I know they'll be well off. You know what I mean? Because I
That's right.
taught them the right thing.
You gave it to him. Me and Jamie talk often about how you could almost, if he's sitting there with a kid who is not with their parents, they were dropped off, you can tell what kind of parenting skills they have by how they behave, right? And
Absolutely.
so, for anybody that's a parent, new or been doing it for a while, I'll be honest with you, I can judge you just a little bit because there's certain things that you're not going to tolerate as a parent, and you do it in a loving way. But we recognize that the fruit don't fall too far from the tree. So I know, but having not met your wife yet, right? Hopefully I'll meet her one day. I already know what kind of woman she is. I already know.
Absolutely.
I know she ain't
Absolutely.
playing with you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
She's doing her job, you doing your job in a loving way. Like we're gonna provide discipline. We're also gonna let you be a kid, let you be a teenager, let you be a young adult. But we have to create. They need order and structure. And if you don't, and I got lucky because I had my uncle. My mom was pretty good about doing her job as a mom, a single Black woman, and I just thank them for that. And it's been really nice to reflect on that as I thought about the things that we're talking about today. I'm also a big fan of speaking of your wife, healthy relationships. That's my rope. The R in my rope is for relationships. I have patients who come to me and their pressure is not good. And
Mm-hmm.
then I find out that they're in a dysfunctional relationship. And then we
Mm.
get them help for the relationship, then their blood pressure goes down. Isn't that
Wow,
crazy? Isn't that crazy?
man,
It's deep, ain't it?
that's a beautiful thing. That's what that is, man.
It is. And so our significant other, they provide a ton of support. And if we struggle, which is okay because we live in a world where we're going to struggle, we need to make sure we get help. And sometimes the help we get between each other is not enough. I did an episode of the podcast, just so you know, episode 100, and it was just me and my wife, Karan. And we talked about how we met, blah, blah, blah. But I did share the Five Love Languages, which is a great book for relationships, so you'll know what your partner's love language is. And I also share the Seven Principles of Marriage by a guy named Gottman. They literally did research on relationships. I encourage everybody who's in a relationship to get those two books. And the Gottman book is like gold standard. And I said in that episode, and I'll say it again, they can meet you and your wife and within 15 minutes to 30 minutes predict if you're going to stay married. It's
Wow,
91% accurate.
wow, man.
I'm gonna text you that information because
Wow,
even if isn't it crazy? So if you're in a healthy relationship, let's make it healthier because sometimes the struggle comes when life changes. So let's just say when you get that last kid out of the house, then you got to actually get to know your wife again because right now you're focused on the kids, right? But
right.
but so you have to be prepared. So I think it's a great resource no matter where people are in their lives, and I'll make sure to share that with you and hopefully the audience will check that out. But talk to me a little bit about, we have a stereotype that Black men, they're not married, they can't stay in relationships. So, how important is your relationship with your wife, and what has that done for you?
Oh man, the relationship with my wife, man, it made me reflect on a lot of things that I was doing unconsciously. It grew me up, man, basically because you know, by a woman giving you almost um by a woman trusting you in the security that you can put around her like that,
Mm.
that makes you um mature, man, real fast. It's almost like, hey, listen, you better step up to this plate and hit some home runs. You know what I'm saying? And
Ooh.
and that's what it is, man. I just became a person where I knew how to pull tricks out of hats, man, and it was good paying tricks. You know what I mean? Where it's very important to me, man. The relationship we have, man. I mean, it grew me up, man. I mean, to be honest, man. Then you can kind of see what kind of person you are through your significant other, man. You know what I mean? You can
Hmm.
tell, how things are. So it changed me a lot. It woke me up. It made me do a lot of things different. I was already a good person, but man, it made me just flourish into a better person. You know what I'm saying? You know, they gonna be on you, man, because they see a lot of potential. They're gonna be on
Man.
top of you. Like you said, your wife said, hey, look, you gotta go be a real doctor. Don't be keep playing
Right.
around.
Right. Right.
You know. So that's part of the reason I always been an entrepreneur, man. I started off doing some other stuff that I'm not too proud of, but I graduated from that, man, and went to school, got all my first I came from being a mechanic, a mobile mechanic. Then I went from there to doing what I'm doing now in the current business I'm doing now.
Hmm.
I can say it, man. It's all because that little push I had. Not she wasn't telling me, "Hey, get up and start getting ready." It's just the thing of you knowing that this person is kind of dependent on you to make things move. You know what I'm saying? You the man of the house, and I can't sit and lay back and be curled up on the couch, man. I got to get out and do something. You know what I'm saying? So I just used um, her insecurities in life, you know, and the things that she thought she couldn't do. I said and took that energy and converted it into my own and went out and made something happen, man. So that's what I do every day, man. Every day.
Ooh, man, you got
Every day.
some. You dropped some nuggets. You really. The first thing is I want to comment on is, the podcast is called "Protecting Your Nest." Well, if there's anybody on the planet that know how to protect their nest, that's a woman, a
Yep.
wife,
Yep.
even a girlfriend. They don't play.
No, they don't
and
play, man.
and you gave me you reminded me of my father-in-law, because we've had conversation. It literally feels like I'm talking to him, right? And he said that there was a point when my now deceased mother-in-law um, told him, you got this baby girl. That was my wife. What you gonna do? Because
That's
I'm
right.
not playing with you. That you're gonna either do what you gotta do, or it won't be any of us. So he and luckily he took the right moves, and eventually he spent most of his job. Actually, when I was at the barbershop yesterday, I met
Mhm.
a guy who was with Yellow Freight truck company, and that's who he worked for. And it was a guy, he came in, he was on the road. He looked kind of scraggly. He knocked on
Mhm.
the door at the end of the day. I got to get this done because she ain't gonna let me in the house. She ain't gonna let me in the house, so he had to get it straight. But man, my father-in-law said the same thing you said. He said, "Listen, she told me you gotta do this, and you gotta, and like you used the whole baseball analogy. You said step up to the plate, right? So we
And knock
back
a
with
home run.
the knock a home run, and that's what he was
Yeah.
able to do because he raised my wife's a pharmacist. Her sister, by the way, is a doctor. So he
Right.
somehow, and then so he really was able to do his job, and of course his wife was she was in working in the hospital, doing what we call utilization review, making sure people are in the hospital for the right reasons. But man, I love everything that you said because you gave me some goose pimples as I thought about my father-in-law because he said the exact same stuff. So,
Yeah.
um, so let's talk a little bit about maybe some. I have we're doing a lot of this nest and rope. The T is also for trauma, right? And I
Hmm.
know, a little. We talked a little bit about some of the trauma you've experienced in life. And I think it has something to do with having been shot before. I have never been shot before, even though I grew up in the hood. I've been fortunate to dodge those bullets literally. But although I had a gunpoint moment when I was in New Orleans where I got robbed. We used to wear those gold rope chains. I was at a club with some friends coming out, gun to the head. Thankfully, that didn't turn into anything crazy, but I've never been shot. So that sounds like a trauma. So when you've been shot in the past, how do you recover from a trauma like that? And what was that life experience like for you? Because that's a lot to go through for anybody.
You know what, man? I got shot, man, standing in front of my mom's house. And man, it's wild, man. I mean, just thinking back on that situation now, man, it's something. I mean, still hearing the loud gunshots in my mind, man. When
Hmm.
I got released from the hospital, um, I think the 4th of July had went by, man. And all the fireworks and all the big loud noise and stuff. Man, I had sat down on the floor, man, in the house, man. I'm not lying to you because I had that feeling and that experience in my mind of, man. you may not walk away from this situation. You know what I'm saying? So what I did was, man, I kind of I got over it. You know how you hear that athletes break their arm or break their leg, or a mountain climber falls, and
Hmm.
you hear about it on the news. Then the next segment you hear about the same guy is up back on the mountain again. I kind of did that similar, but I didn't go back out where I got shot at. I didn't do that again. What I did was I kind of prepared myself that I was gonna go back outside and not be afraid of things around me. I had to take the stereotype out of my mind that something was gonna happen to me again if I returned outside again. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
I had to work on
Hmm.
myself mentally. And that's something everybody has to do. When you go through some traumatizing stuff like that, man. I mean, it was worse, man. Just thinking about it, and I was froze, man, for months after I got out of the hospital because I was just thinking, like, man, what? I didn't even deserve that in the first place. You know what I'm saying? I
Hmm.
almost died. I had three hours of surgery, man. It was wild, man. I mean, I prayed on that, I worked myself out of it. Mentally. It was a whole mental thing, Doctor B. To be on point with the answer, it was a
Yeah.
whole. They had to work with my mentality and my mental to get myself out of that traumatized state because I was froze, man.
Yeah. And no matter how often people think it's like, let's just say you grew up in the hood, and we have neighborhoods in Chicago called Inglewood and Garfield and others, K-Town where I grew up.
That's
um,
right.
and I'm gonna tell you, people think because you're used to that you're fine. That's not true. Like, and
It's
that's
not.
why it's not. And I thank God that Advocate Aurora has a trauma recovery center, and what they do, it's new. It's been around for a couple of years, maybe. I'm not sure exactly, but it hasn't been that long. And they have a 16-week course where you actually are interacting with people who have had traumas, and it takes a minute. And I'll be honest, I don't think the trauma ever goes away. You just learn to live with it better. I'm sure loud noises still spook you a little bit,
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit.
Yeah. So what I want, so, and then let's go. You mentioned bullets, right? And 4th of July. I don't know if this is normal, but the way I grew up, because we had a bullet come through our window once during my lifetime as a child. New Year's, 4th of July, it's routine that we stay away from the window and that we kind of get on the floor a little bit. That's what we do. I'm at now. If you're listening to this or watching this, you may think we're crazy. I mean, who does
But we
that,
not.
right? That's what it is. That's what it
That's what it
was. And
is.
so you have to understand there's a different life experience for people out there that you had not even considered. And I remember Jamie saying he had a moment at some point where even at a family gathering, somebody doot doot doot, the bullets
Yeah,
have to come down. They got to come
absolutely.
down.
Absolutely,
So what
man.
are we doing shooting bullets in the air when the bullet in a city, for Christ's sake,
Right,
where there's people everywhere? So we have
right.
to rethink the things we do. But more importantly, if you've been traumatized, rather it's because you've been shot or you're in the military, or when you were younger somebody touched you, or you've been abused in your relationship, please get help. Advocate Aurora is not the only health system that has a trauma recovery center. So let's get some help. Maybe it could be a therapist or anybody that can kind of help walk you through that. So, but I do want to touch also on, I call it micro trauma,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of speaks to what we talked about in the beginning about how people perceive us. So there are little things that we experience, rather it's what we just described, where we have to huddle on the floor for the 4th of July or New Year's, or maybe how people treat us in public. When you think about your experience as a Black man dealing with like things that happen that other people may not think about, what types of micro traumas, minor things that get on your nerves, that can you think of that you experience that make your life traumatically more than it should be? Anything that comes to mind?
Getting pulled over, man. Getting pulled over by the authorities, and they automatically thinking you're gonna be rude, or you're
Hmm.
gonna cause a big commotion. things like that is irritating, especially when you get pulled over. One thing I do when I get pulled over, I let down my windows, all my windows in my
Mm-hmm.
vehicle, and I'll put my hands up just flat out so
Mm-hmm.
the officer feels, comfortable and everything. But it's very irritating because the officer is afraid. You know what I'm saying? You see him walk up and
Mm-hmm.
he got his hand right by his gun and he's on his walkie-talkie and other officers
Yeah.
pulling up. They got your car surrounded for a minor traffic infraction. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And it's
Tail
like, man, this,
lights.
yeah. So you have to keep your mind. You have to keep your head because you like, wait a minute, why are you reacting to me like this? You said you pulled me over because um, I ran the yellow light. You know what I'm saying? It's something minor. So why am I being treated like this? It's irritating. And like you said when you first started this, you said, hey, it's dangerous being a black man in America. You know what I'm saying? And that's part of the irritation that I have sometimes when I'm being pulled over by a cop. You got to learn to keep your mindset and be like, hey, I know he's scared, so I can't really voice what I really want to say. So it's, hey, how you doing, officer? Not even can I help you. I'm waiting for him to tell me what he needs.
Mm-hmm.
One time I had a guy tell me, hey, give me your license and insurance, and my license was in my back pocket and my insurance is in my glove compartment. I had to
Mm-hmm.
tell him, hey, listen, officer, I don't want no trouble. So let me go in my glove compartment. It's right here. I'm gonna reach for it. I'm gonna take the paper out and hand it to you. You know what I mean? I was irritated, man. Like, man, man, I ain't even do nothing to nobody, man. I'm
I
just
know.
I'm on my way to Jewel's to go get some groceries and go in the house. Here you is with all these Christmas lights behind me, man. Like I
Right.
robbed the bank or something,
That's right, but that's
It's
that's
crazy.
what it is. And so what so we because we have these life experiences and these I call micro traumas, and we want to protect our babies, right? So we're protecting our nest, and that our babies are the most important commodity in our nest. We ended up we learned to de-escalate. Like, so what we do is we say, let's create an environment where you're likely to walk away from that interaction alive, right? Isn't that
Bro,
crazy?
yeah,
Straight up. That's
absolutely.
what we
Yeah,
do. And
yeah,
and so we've been training our babies and we train ourselves to de-escalate, de-escalate. We need the cops to do the same thing. You should
absolutely,
come to that. I'm not suggesting you don't have your gun or whatever you're supposed to do, but your tone when you talk to me should be a tone of de-escalation. Your body
absolutely.
language should be a body language of de-escalation. And I just think that if we can do that and feel a level of calm from the cop's voice, then maybe that we won't be as angry because we're fighting anger while we're trying to de-escalate. While
You
we're
know
trying
what?
to, you know what I mean?
You know what? Not only anger, you fighting preconception. The
Yes.
the way somebody conceives you, man. That's the point. You fighting. And you kind of know in the back of your mind, hey, well, and that's part of the trauma. You don't want to be living in the past, so you want to be in the present as much as possible. That's one thing I learned from reading a lot of books, self-development books. You want to be in the present as much as possible, so that makes it where you can deal with an officer that's almost maybe traumatized himself or think that he's supposed to be on the edge himself, trying to watch what you're gonna do. So I think if both parties can learn to de-escalate situations, you know what I mean, we'll be much safer, man. But now the way things are now, man, you have to think. It's almost like when you driving, you got to drive for the other driver. You know what
Right.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
Same thing with uh small experiences like that. You almost have to think, what is the other person thinking? Is he afraid? And don't make the wrong move in the car. You know what I'm saying? Tell him what you're gonna do before you reach for something. Because we saw a million times where people were shot and killed, man, because they reached for the ID, or hey, I got my concealed carry under my seat, sir, and yeah, here it is right here, and don't realize, man, you're not supposed to reach. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, it's very irritating, man, to know that you being looked at as a criminal, and you haven't even did anything. You know what I'm saying? It's dangerous.
Yeah.
It's
It's
real
very
dangerous.
dangerous. What's interesting about your comments is it sounds like not only you mentioned the cops are scared. So we're all traumatized. The cops are
Absolutely.
traumatized, the person being pulled over is traumatized. So I would only ask the authorities who train cops to make sure that they get the help they need. They need a police officer recovery center as well, because
Yeah,
they need to recover, and don't put them back out there until you feel comfortable that they've sufficiently give them a desk job until they're sufficiently recovered. And that needs to be ongoing. It can't just
absolutely.
be we're going to do a class for a week. It's got to be how you doing, check in, check in, check in. How's it? You just had a difficult situation. How'd that go? How'd you handle it? Check in, check in. Because if it's my family member that just got killed because a cop was not trained, was not, supported when they were suffering with their trauma, and my family member dies, I'm going to care less about that officer because I'm focused on my family member. So
Absolutely, man.
we got to keep helping each other. And I just think that's so important. I appreciate that, man. Everything, as I listen to you, I look at you just like I did at the barbershop as a role model. So I don't know if you consider yourself a role model. I consider you. You're not like Charles Barkley, hopefully. He said, I'm not a role model. I said, yes, you are, whether you know it or not. So how do you see you? Do you perceive yourself as a role model when you think about what you've done with your entrepreneurship, a husband, a parent, all those things you're up to?
I do, man. At first I didn't, but I do now because I knowing that your kids are copying off you, man. When you're not looking, they're paying attention. You know, yeah, I do know that I'm a role model, and that's what made me straighten up in what I'm doing now, right now, today, because I
Yeah.
know somebody else is copying off what I'm doing, and if I'm not straight, they ain't gonna be straight.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it made me look at myself, man, objectively, and change whatever things that I need to change about myself, and just stand up straight, man, on all 10 toes, man, and look at myself in the mirror, ask myself, am I comfortable with what I'm doing? And if I'm not, I need to change it. You know what I'm saying? Just manning up and looking at myself in the mirror, man, and being honest about things. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I do consider myself a very strong role model, man. A very strong.
I'm thinking as we kind of talk about role model real quick. You're an entrepreneur. You a real estate broker, or are you just doing this on your own, just from your experience?
Now, you know what, man? All my life, man, I've been kind of pushed into situations. So me just going into the real estate field, I just went right into the real estate
You
field,
just
man.
did it. You just
Right,
went
just
for
went
it.
right into it. Yeah, because that's the only way you can do it. I mean, if you sit around and wait, the mistakes that you need to make to learn, you ain't gonna never learn them
Never
because
do it.
you
Okay.
waiting, man. So I got right in it, man, and that's what I do now today. I open my own company up, and I manage foreclosed properties for banks, large banks
Mm,
too, very large
mm,
banks.
You know
So
what I
I
love
mean,
it.
yeah,
This is valuable because a lot of times people think, man, the only way I'm gonna be successful, I gotta go to medical school to be Dr. Hampton. But guess what? No. And in our community, is in fact the real wealth is built on, we already know, real estate, investing in stocks, owning a business. That's where
yep,
the real American dream occurs. I'm not sad,
absolutely,
so I wanted to mention that because if I got a young person listening and they're thinking, man, I didn't get in trouble before or whatever. I have a good friend who decided to go into the trucking business because people weren't trying to hire him because of the stereotypes. Maybe
yeah,
because he had a issue with his record. And what I love about your path is that, if you have a little fire in your bottom and you want something, you just go out here and do it. And you don't have to, and you become your own boss. So you don't have to beg for nothing. You just say, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to learn this trade. And then I'm employing other people and helping other people while I'm doing it. So it's like a no-brainer, man. So I really
yeah.
appreciate that. And that's why, again, I look at you as a role model. I appreciate you. Is
Thanks,
there,
man.
so when you think about the future, right? Anything like where you want to be 10 years from now? I need, thoughts on your goals for yourself, your dreams, aspirations.
You know what, man? 10 years from now, I would like to own maybe over three, four, 500 properties. 10 years from now, and basically just swell my real estate portfolio up as big as I can get it. You know what I mean? And move around according to how the economy is going up and down. Because when you're in real estate, there's different real estate cycles. You know what I mean? It may
Mm-hmm.
become
Mm-hmm.
a time where I have to sell half of my portfolio folder. It may be a time
Mm-hmm.
where I have to buy a lot of properties to fill the portfolio back up. You know what I mean? So yeah, man,
That's
yeah.
all good. So if anybody, if 10 years from now, Dr. Hampton owns a little property too, we're gonna thank Al because I'm gonna be on Al so hard. You're gonna hate
Thanks,
you met
man.
me at the barbershop, man. So I love that
Thanks, man.
because that's definitely my next thing. Again, I already know where the money's at. It's in real estate, business,
Absolutely.
stocks. These that's where and it's nothing wrong with a 9 to 5. You need some money sometimes to have a foundation. But I'm gonna tell you, I love that. So let's wrap up with my favorite question, which is my nest and rope. And for those who follow me, they know it's about nutrition, exercise, less stress, more sleep, recovering from trauma, protecting your thoughts. And the rope is about relationships, avoiding organisms and pollutants that can harm you, and of course, making sure our life experiences serve us and protecting our emotions. So when you think about the next 12 months, other than your, entrepreneur journey, where do you plan to focus some extra attention so you can be the man you want to be?
It's it's in protecting my thoughts and recovery, man, all day, because like you said, man, what you perceive becomes a reality. So if 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 you watch your thoughts and watch what you're thinking and everything, and be positive no matter what the situation is going. Some people call it toxic positivity, but it's not, man. When the thing is, uh, 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 if you hold your mood to be happy and everything, no matter what you're going through, you can think your way out of situations. So that's what's important to me, man. Protecting my thoughts and the recovery from the traumas that I've been through. You don't want to be walking around with past traumas in your mind all the time. You want to keep yourself present as possible. That way you can think clearer. It's almost like, if how can I put it? You just don't want to have a big bag of rocks and they holding you down while you going through life on this earth. You don't want
Hmm.
things to slow you down. So that's why you have to keep yourself in the present at all times. So those two pillars, man, are my most important things, man.
I love it, man. Man, I'm just sitting here, just reflecting. I'm being present, as
Yeah,
I had to learn how to be present even during a podcast recording because sometimes you're like, what's the question I want to ask? I try to be present because I want this to be not just an experience for my audience, but for me as well. And even though we grew up in a similar environment, you have life experiences that are different than mine. Rather, it's the real estate experience that's slightly different than mine. Rather, it's having had the trauma of a gunshot wound, having a girl, and I'm still jealous of that. So it's all good though. It's all good. Hopefully, I have some grandbabies, and a girl will pop in eventually. So, but man,
yeah,
I enjoyed this, man, and I'm gonna tell you a little secret, man. After we met, I had to go into Jamie, our barber's ear. I said, should I interview this guy? Is he legit? He said, man, you got the right one. That's what he
yeah.
told me. And he confirmed
That's
it
right, man.
just yesterday. And I have confirmed it, and my audience has after our conversation. So I want to thank you just for, being honest, open, sharing your thoughts, and being able to kind of help the world see Black men through a different lens. So hopefully the next time
Thanks,
they see
man.
you pull up with your socks hat, instead of looking at you funny, they'll be like, "Yeah, that's one of my people right there. It's all
I
good," and they'll
appreciate
feel
that,
proud.
man. I
Yes, I
appreciate
appreciate
that.
you. So thank you again for being with me. I'll share a few closing remarks. And you're not on social media, are you? You do any of that
Yeah, I'm on
stuff?
social media. I have an Instagram page.
Okay.
Everybody can contact me by. Hold on a second. I don't
Yeah.
want to give you the wrong
Yeah. Look
handle.
it up. And I think it's important because you may inspire somebody, especially a young person who wants to kind of, hear from you, and maybe that'll be a way to kind of connect with you. So love that.
So on the page, I have an Instagram page. The page handle is called Mr. Underscore Entrepreneur Underscore Business. And on that Instagram page, you see a lot of, well, I won't say examples, but you see a lot of pictures and videos of things that I do to the bank-owned properties. You can go on there
Nice.
and look. I'm making a lot of, I made a lot of videos, even videos, some of my kind of educating people on how to do what I do. And I'm even selling a
Mm,
course, letting people know how to do what I do, just, educating people into doing this so it can be more business owners in the world, man. We can, make more opportunities for other people, because I'm showing you how to do what I'm doing, and I'm happy doing it.
I love it. I'm definitely going to share that in the show notes. I'll probably sign up for that myself as I'm kind of preparing to dive more into real estate at the level where you're doing it. So thank you for that. Again, appreciate you.
No
I think I'm
problem,
going to go
man.
order me a socks hat after this.
Yeah, man.
Get my
Yeah,
socks hat on, you know
yeah,
what I'm saying? So
yeah. That's
so
my
it's
hat. I
all
love
good.
it, man.
That's
I love
right.
it.
That's right. All right, man. You have a good one. I'm gonna wrap up with a few thoughts. And for those who are watching or listening, today was a great episode. I really enjoyed it. Was looking forward to it, and we learned that so many of us are on a different journey, and some of us struggle for different reasons. And I hope that you learned a little bit more about why Black men may struggle, and I want you to take that to every culture. Different people struggle for different reasons. And I just want you to ask yourself, well, why would they struggle? Understand it, and then become empathetic. So if you're a clinician, be empathetic. If it's an obese person, be empathetic. If it's a person of color, be empathetic. Understand that there's reasons why people struggle. And I just hope that as we interact with people in our community, that we are aware of our emotions, our belief systems, our values, and understand that those things can harm them because we can put that on them when they don't deserve that. So make sure that's not who you are, because we want to build a world where we're not doing that. So let's continue to help each other heal, grow, become more knowledgeable, and not be afraid to have conversations about race, conversations about what makes us different, and of course, let's keep talking about what makes us the same. So I hope everybody checking out this episode enjoyed it. And until we have another episode, continue to be safe, be well, and continue to protect your nest. And again, Al, you're the man. Thank you so much for being here, my brother.
No problem, brother. You have a good day, man.
Absolutely.